My name is Amy Siegel, and I'm joined by Tina Weissman. And welcome to the Startup Getting Started webinar.
Glad you're here today.
So we'll go ahead and turn off our webcams and just focus on the presentation. So if you're not familiar with GoToWebinar, there are a couple of controls here that are helpful. You'll see that there is an orange arrow at the top, and if you click on that, it'll minimize your control panel and kind of get all that out of the way. And if you click on the orange arrow again, it'll make it bigger again so you can see all the features. There is a little raised hand icon that you see there, and if you click on that, we like to keep an eye on those, and if we see it, we're going to let you ask questions, and we'll unmute you first. There is a mute button, and we start off with everybody muted just so we don't have a lot of background noise. But when you have a question, we can unmute your microphone and let you ask what you need to ask. We also have in your control panel, when it's maximized, you can type a question, and it'll send to our staff here. Tina or I will get that, and we'll either type back a reply to you, or if it's a question that we feel like we need to bring to the group, we'll read it to the group and give you an answer there. Yeah, so those are your basic GoToWebinar control panels.
Today's agenda is obviously getting started. So within this, we're going to talk briefly about the grant agreement. We'll do a little bit of a review. We'll do introductions. Then we'll do an overview, and we'll break this down into the actual school improvement process, what we call vision to action. We'll talk a little bit about organizational structure and the leadership support, and then we'll talk about, at the end, the December tasks.
So looking at your grant agreement, in your memorandum of understanding that you signed when you applied for the grant, ASA, that is the parent organization of SI2, agreed to provide until June 30th our online system, and that includes the school improvement process and timeline, templates, reports, a steering team manual, and an auto-generated school improvement plan. We'll also be providing steering training through videos and webinars, and steering team support. That includes our strategic planning specialist with on-call consultation, and the strategic planning specialist also provides submission reviews. In exchange, the school agrees to convene a steering team, participate in monthly webinars, this is your first, collect data, conduct 6 steering team discussions, send in submissions, respond to the feedback that you're given, and if you're disengaged, if your school stops participating in the process, then the school would pay for the remaining balance of the grant. And we do that because we feel like it's important that when we're committing our resources to you, and we've hired staff and made plans to support your school, we just want to make sure that you also have some skin in the game and know that if you don't finish, you'll be responsible for the remainder of the grant. That has rarely happened. Most of our schools start and finish, so not to be concerned. We plan on seeing you all the way through.
And most of them have started and finished for the past 20+ years. So it's been a really good relationship. Doing a little bit with introductions, as you saw us on the webcam just a couple of minutes ago. I'm Tina Weissman, and I'm your strategic planning specialist. And I'm just sort of the 7th member of your team. If you ever have any questions about the process itself, if you need a person to listen for brainstorming, if you have any, just any questions at all concerning the vision to action process, what's going on in your school as far as, how you do your achievement data, if you'd like to do it a new way, if you're, looking into data, any part of the process, anytime at all, I am more than happy to help. and you can always reach me by calling the phone number that's listed on every email we send you. And then also, I work Wednesday evenings. We're on Eastern time, but I do work from 2 until 8 in the evening. And that way, that gives a lot of schools time if you want to have, for example, your watch this webinar, for example. If you're doing that, you can schedule a time with me, and then I can be here available and to answer any question basically in real time. So I try to be as flexible with my hours as possible. And then any submissions that you have, I always read through those and try to be as very, very, very specific on what it is that you need to make a good plan. And I'll just help in any way that I can. I'm here.
Tina, can you talk a little bit about your background and how you got started with SI2?
Oh, sure. I taught English and social studies for 14 years, 7 through 12, and then decided to become an elementary principal. And so went and did that and worked, had a pre-K through 5 school. And during that time, we had a very small school, and I was very concerned about our low numbers. And as anybody with small schools know, if you have 1 or 2 kids who are not strong students, or maybe are not getting the help that they need in a consistent manner, your numbers will just go up and down like a yo-yo. And I didn't really want to be the school that just hoped that we would have good annual I-STEP results, or just hope that our kids would be learning. I wanted to know, and I wanted the teachers to know, and I wanted us to all be on the same page. And so about that time, we were able to join what was then called INSEE. And we went to the meetings and really got enthusiastic about the whole process, because for one thing, everyone is involved. We've all been through other processes where there's a small team, the small team does the work just to get it over with and moves on, and then life goes on as usual. We're interested in helping you change the culture of your school, and that's exactly what happened in our building. It got to the point to where we were all speaking that same academic language. The kids took to it like ducks to water. They were doing their own student parent teacher conferences, and then our scores just were becoming very predictable of what we could do. And most importantly, we could find and pinpoint a situation with a student not learning well almost immediately. And then we could jump right in. We could get that child the triage and then the help long range that he or she needed. And as a result, had great success with it. And I attribute all of that to this vision to action process. Been very pleased.
I was actually Tina's strategic planning specialist. I'm Amy Siegel, and I'm now the vice president at ASA. And back in those days, I was the strategic planning specialist for Tina's school at Otwell Elementary. And I'd never seen anybody jump into data the way that Tina did. And that was throughout her building. You could ask any of their teachers about their data, and they could speak at length about what was going on in the school, and then also what they were doing to work on their data. It really was a culture shift, and it was really throughout the school and community. So my background, I taught for a short while, and then I worked for the 21st Century Scholars Program. And after that, I worked on a Care Up grant in Orange County. And in that time, we had funding to get our 3 Orange County schools involved in an initiative like INSEE. And so I was able to do that. We got all 3 schools, all 3 high schools involved, and the process just made sense. It's a very logical process, well thought out, and I just fell in love with it. And so when Sue Reynolds, our president, offered me she created the position of strategic planning specialist. I was the first one. I left the Gear Up grant and came on board, and I've been here for 17 years now. And it's just been wonderful working with schools and seeing teachers and parents and community people coming together with administrators and counselors and kids, really involving their students in making their schools better. It's exciting. So that's what we do, and that's who we are. And we are both really happy to be here with you all. So we'll be doing your webinars all year, by the way. So you'll get used to our voices, I guess. Okay. So we're going to start with an overview of SI2. I know a lot of you probably remember this from the webinar, the introduction, when you were looking at applying for the SI2 grant. So we'll start with, what is SI2? SI2, the School Improvement Institute, helps schools and communities work together to establish achievement goals, to identify the change that needs to occur in the school and community to reach those goals, and then to implement the change.
We use in SI2 what we call the vision to action process. And so this is the graphic of it. So right now we're going to talk about how it is vision-based and it's data-driven. And as you can see, it's continuous. So now we're going to walk through it. As you see at the top, you have an organizational structure. And so as a result of that, you put together your team and the steering team. And so then from there, you see that you can skip down and we can look at, Amy, do we want to do 2 or 3 first?
Sorry about that. I did this, I numbered it in order of the process page,
Sure,
but I was thinking about how it would flow here. Really, we go from creating the organizational structure, we slip in there collecting the current data, but really it's after creating the vision that we look at our current data. So go in our normal order. I apologize for that, but it does match up with your process page.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the process page is very sequential.
And we're going to look at that in detail.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. For those of you sequential out there in the audience, don't pass out right now. This is a lovely chart, but we'll do sequentially too.
It's for visual learners.
Yes. Yes. So that organizational group then talks about vision, and we all consider not just a mission of what we're doing, but the vision of what we're doing. So we encourage everyone to know that only the sky is the limit with this. And so from that, we derive a vision statement, or you will, and then you'll also have vision data that will go into that vision statement. From that point, you will then look at current data, and we have a number of pieces of data that we have you look at in achievement data. And then, of course, we go through the process of SMART goals and then looking at that. And so then we go into of course, the SMART goals then goes into the root causes, which is kind of near and dear to my heart, as Amy would attest, because we so many times want to look at data and then we want to throw fixes at it. And this is a really smart part of this process. You have to know what's going on first. And so we take the time out and we dig around and we look for the roots of the problems that are keeping the data from moving. And then and only then do we go ahead and we look at putting into place interventions that are going to eliminate or at least really slow down any problem with those root causes. And as a result, the data will move. And there again, living proof of it with the school, where I was at, this is exactly what changed it for us. And then with those interventions, of course, you have to have preparation. You have to be organized. You get everything together. I'm a list person. That made me very happy. And then you put it all into action. And so then it begins to flow just like this. And it turns into a very, very nice process that everyone can be a part of. Everyone has a duty. And I've always said it's one of the best graduate classes I ever took in my life, because it applies to life as well as it applies to the school.
Absolutely. Tina mentioned that probably her favorite part in the process, the root causes. For me, I think the most powerful part of this, when I was working with 3 schools as a participant, was the vision. And the reason being, we had teachers who were, veteran teachers who probably become a little jaded, and to see them get back to what their dreams were for kids and what they wanted their school to be for every student who walked through the door. And then to come back when things were hard, when we were having hard discussions, when we were getting into that current data and a lot of dissatisfaction, or when people were disagreeing, we could come back to the vision and remember that we all that we had a common vision, that we all want what's best for kids. And so that's a step that I think a lot of people just kind of get through. But it's an important step, and I hope that when we get to it, you'll see just how powerful that can be to let us dream for kids again. So that's my little piece of the process. Okay, so in our overview, one of the big tools that we have that we've created, and we've been working on this, for 17 years, is our online system. And it has evolved over the years. We're going to look at that later in this presentation. But this is where schools enter information into our online template. And then that information becomes printable reports that get used in each step of the process. So one of the things that we'll probably say over and over again is that you need to work in order in the process so that you have the reports you need for the next step in the process. Everything builds. And so, over the years, this has evolved. We've built, it's I think a good system, but it's very rich. So we'll have a look at that in a little bit. Oh, and ultimately, this prints out the school improvement plan for you. You finish each step of the way, and then at the very end, you're really just clicking on one link, and you have your entire school improvement plan.
All right. This year, we have only a steering team that makes up the organizational structure. Hopefully, you will decide to just stick with us, and over the years then that will broaden, and eventually the organizational structure in different levels will just involve everybody in your building. So it's a nice building way to do it. But the first year we don't want to completely overload everyone, so this is we keep it kind of SI2 light. So your members of that team, you have all been looking for those team members right now and probably have all those established by now. You have your principal, you have 2 teachers, and we do ask that if you're a middle school or high school, that one of those teachers be a math teacher. It's not absolutely, it's not an absolute, but it seems to be helpful. That you have your counselor, you have a parent that is not employed by the school, because sometimes that loyalty issue comes into play and becomes a bit uncomfortable, and an economic person. And that economic development person can be anyone who you feel could have an impact from the economic environment and that facet of your area where your school is. Some larger areas are going to have more people involved in that. Some smaller rural areas, I know where I live, it's a very small area, but there are still people who are economically strong in those areas. So that's the people that you want to look for, and people that are willing to talk good things about the school and see that connection between school and future education and work. And some of you have already contacted me with different concerns about this, the members of the steering team. These are not these aren't hard and fast carved in stone rules. Every school, and it gets more so every year, lots of different configurations of schools. And so those of you who haven't called me, don't let this be a stumbling block for you. Just give me a call, tell me what the layout of your building is, what your membership looks like, and then we'll go from there. But don't let this stop you from doing this process, because that would be a shame. The goals of the group this first year are to learn the process and then create the SIP, the School Improvement Plan. The role of this organizational group this year, the steering team, you are decision makers. So you're going to have tasks, as you see, every month. And so every month, all steering team members will participate in a monthly webinar, just like this one. And then immediately following that webinar, you're going to discuss the prompts provided during the webinar, and we'll be giving you those here in just a bit. And then within 1 week of the webinar, give or take, we know January's coming, it can be kind of icky out there. We ask that you perform the assigned tasks, that you send those submissions to ASE, which will come to me. I will give you feedback on those, and then you will revise the submissions as requested. And then at that point in time, if you have any questions about it, you can certainly contact me and we can walk through it together. The organizational structure then in subsequent years, you see that the members of the steering team will be the same as this year. The council, you will have a council and a student body that will start participating. And you see that that council is just like exponential steering team. You have your entire faculty on this one. You invite more parents in. You invite in more economic development folks. You invite business, government, community foundations, people from higher education, from service clubs, public library, everyone who cares about school. So there again, don't let your configuration of your area stop you, thinking we're too small, we're too large, we're too this, we're too that. These councils will show a reflection of your area. And so, but you can see you have a lot. When we can say everyone who cares about the school, you see that it's a pretty broad berth. And then you have all of your students in your student body. And I've always told Amy, this is always one of the highlights of my year, is reading the student body minutes. Because out of the mouth of babes of all ages, preschool through seniors, there is a great deal of practical suggestions, as well as wit, and as well as some really good philosophical insight. So, you know, the kids might not appear to be really involved in this if you were to ask, but they are. They are very much involved, and it's great. And notice we say all students. Don't just have a small group of students. Don't select students. Don't handpick students. It needs to be everyone having a voice, because they need to know they all matter. Every opinion in that building matters. Your goal in subsequent years then is to once again implement an SIP written in the previous year, and then you start making those adjustments to your SIP for the coming year. And so you're getting the foundation this year, and then from then on out, you're going to be making adjustments in subsequent years. The role you see are the steering team or facilitators. You go from being decision makers to facilitators. The decision maker's role goes to the council. And then the student body will provide, as you can tell, some very valuable input.
And this is, we don't give you this slide for it to be daunting at this point. This year, your steering team, like we said, you're going to be getting your feet wet. You're going to be learning the process and writing that initial school improvement plan. And that way you can pivot to being facilitators, knowing what how everything works. So, and we do this again, step by step, very methodical. We give you lots of information and lots of guidance on how to set this up. So don't be daunted. We just want to give you a preview of how this works as you move down the road with SI2. So one of the questions we are asked a lot, we do have a steering team of 6, but most people ask, can others have a voice this year? And the answer, of course, is yes. It is not a requirement, but you certainly can invite more people to sit in with the steering team. So you can invite others to sit in on the webinars and then have participate in the discussions that your steering team will be having. You may want to think strategically about this and invite people who influence others in your school and community, and the people whose support you need when you implement your plan next year. So some groups to consider, and these oftentimes end up being people on your council, local government, your community foundation, faith-based organizations, higher education, youth services organizations, anybody interested in the youth and economic development, parents, additional faculty, and additional administrators. So if you want to have more people join your steering team for those discussions, you're certainly welcome to. The next question people usually ask is SI2 a lot of work? And we're going to be honest with you, yep, it is a lot of work, but it's manageable. And part of the reason that's manageable is because we really do provide a lot of tools. We've developed these over the years. Like I said, we've been at this for about 20 years. And so as schools have told us we need something, or they have an idea to make things easier, to flow better, we create tools. And so we have a lot of tools, we have a lot of materials that we've developed, and so those things are available for you. So I'll show you those in the online system. We also have found that when you delegate tasks, it really does make a lot of work manageable. So when you've got a steering team of 6, you've got that team to really come together and divvy things up. The other thing that I think makes it manageable is that help is only a phone call away. We really are serious about providing support. So call us, email us. We're always here to help. We don't want you to sit confused. We want you to let us know and let us help you figure out the next step. Most of all, though, our teams tell us that this work is manageable because it's good work and because their students benefit from it. I don't think they'd want to take this on if it wasn't good for kids. So talking about the leadership support, one of the things we do with this, we take your steering team and we give everybody a point position. This is where we were talking about divvying up the work. So each steering team member will take on a set of tasks. The first is achievement data, and this person in January will be in charge of collecting and entering the achievement data into the online system. That it's not to say that any of these point positions work alone. We often find that steering team members support each other, but there will be a person who's really in charge of making sure that that happens. There will be a root cause data point person, and that person will coordinate surveys and complete self-studies. A lot of times this is an administrator because they have access to all the teachers and can get things done. They also have access to a lot of the information. Sometimes it's also a counselor or the counselor and administrator are working together to make sure all of that gets done. And that's also happening in January. That's part of that data collection. There's going to be a council discussions point person. This year, that person will facilitate the steering team discussions and make sure that the steering team discussions, that the summaries are put in the online system. Later, they'll pivot and they'll facilitate the council discussions. And their work happens from February to May when those council discussions are going on. There's also a council consensus point person. And this year, that person will be bringing the steering team to consensus. And what that means is making sure that everybody can live with and publicly support the decisions that are made. In subsequent years, it expands a bit because you're working with a lot more people, but you're bringing the council to consensus. And that person, because it's during that time when discussions are happening, that's also February to May. And the same with the student body point person. This year, we don't involve the student body, so they're not going to be working on that. But next year, they'll be facilitating the student body discussions. Tina has lots of, she can share with you lots of ways that schools have involved their entire student body. And we've seen everything from school-wide assemblies to posters with Post-it notes to great use of Google Documents for those who are using Chromebooks. So lots of ways to do that. And again, that person's working February to May. And then intervention development. And that point person is facilitating the selection, development, and online entry of the interventions. And they're usually busy May to June. So those are the point positions, and we're going to look at how those get entered online. We also have this slide. I've put it in a handy place so that you can remember what all those are about.
Okay, and then we get into my role, helping you. There you see my name, my number. I just go by Tina. You don't have to remember that's Wiseman. Although this time of year it's easy because there are 3. But anyway, it's my email address is Wiseman. And well, that you do have to remember my last name, and it is EI. And an easy way to spell that is Weisman, WEISMAN, at ASA, and always remember it's ASA Institute.org, so you don't get 2 I's in there. Simple little errors that have driven us all crazy over the years. I will provide you on-call support through telephone, email. I will provide you written feedback on submissions. I am an English major, so sometimes I give you lots of feedback, probably more than you'll ever want. We send you friendly reminders if work is past due. And please don't see that as nagging you, because we know we're all professionals and we know we're all adults. But keeping that in mind, we also know we're all way too busy. And so I'm on this online system every day. You're not. You have many, many, many other irons in the fire. And so sometimes deadlines can slide up on you or whatever. I don't want anyone to get horribly behind, because then it's a misery, no matter what it is. And so at the end of each month or the beginning of the month following, I will send out a friendly reminder telling you that, oh yeah, by the way, to keep on schedule with the process, this is due now. And so if you would go ahead and just get that wrapped up. And then we also will send you monthly update emails. And so each month we will send you an email talking about what is on the agenda for this month, what you need to prepare for, what you'll be talking about, and then also the submissions. And then on each of those monthly updates, it will have a reminder of when the webinar is. If you haven't already registered for that webinar, you can do so then, or you'll see when it actually is. Our webinars are always on the first Wednesday of the month, unless, of course, that's a major holiday or something. But that's when we normally will keep our startup schools on their calendar. So we try to keep everything just as simple and straightforward as possible. And now we have your tasks. We just hop right to that. So you've read the introduction and you've been through all of that. Today you're participating in the webinar. And so your next job to do will be conducting the steering team discussion. Have your steering team together. You will be entering the steering team discussion summary, which Amy's going to be showing you how to do all that here in just a minute. You're going to enter your SIP uses, and you're going to enter your steering team members, your primary contact point positions. This sounds like a lot, but 6, 7, and 8 are basically all one step. And so it's just the information on that step. And then some of you, if you want to, as an optional item, can begin the Indiana PGP log. And Amy, if you want to just talk about that very briefly, that would be great.
We'll look at that when we look at things online.
Very good.
Speaking of, that's right now. So, okay, we're going to switch over and look at our online system. Tina is going to be sending you usernames and passwords. I don't think that's happened yet, but she'll be sending you your login information. When you log in, you'll come to this steering team page, and it just lets you know that you're currently logged in as your school and has some information about your work here. The first thing everybody does, though, is go straight to the process page. This is your guide. I want to point out that on the process page, we give you we call it the section. So section 1 is get organized. That's what we're doing right now. And we give you the month. All you have to worry about in December is this 1 month. Okay, you can look ahead and see what's going to happen in January, but we don't want you to do anything with that until January. We'll have our webinar. We'll explain how to use that, what you need to use in January. So really, all you have to do is just focus on that 1 month that's right here. We give you each step. So we have step 1, there's an introduction to read, and we give you a tool. So you click on that, and it has the introduction. And come back to the process page. Our next one is step 2. We're participating in the steering team webinar, and we're doing that right now. So I'm going to check that off and click save. And now I have it, my first step is checked off. Then we're going to conduct our steering team discussion. And for today, that's really just talking about our steering team and the structure of our steering team. So we'll take a look at each of the tasks that are related to that. So we do give you, for every, conduct your discussion, we give you a tool that goes over to the manual. And so there's a corresponding section. We're in Get Organized. Today's video slides are linked here. We also have the school improvement flyer, and the SI2 flyer, and then the steering team point position descriptions. So those are all things that you would need to discuss, or any tools you might need to do the discussion. So going back to the process page, we're going to conduct our steering team discussion and check that off. The next step is entering our steering team discussion summary. And so every month we'll have you do this. You'll click on this edit icon, and you just go through and fill out each of the fields. So the person who's writing minutes, probably the council discussion point person, puts in their name, the date that you met, who facilitated the discussion, and then, well, this probably isn't going to happen this time around because you haven't entered your steering team members yet. This school has steering team members entered, but you'll go ahead and if you have your steering team members entered, you'll check off your people, and then you're going to enter your minutes in this box. So all you have to do, talk about your discussion, and we often encourage you to quote people, especially when they have good ideas, because this is your record of those meetings. And so put those in and then save. And it'll tell you, most of our pages tell you that your changes were saved, just so you have confirmation. And you can go back to the process page when that's done. And this is the first thing that you submit for review. So we can click the submit button, and we'll say that I'm Jane Doe, and I check the box to say that I'm confirming this is entered and it's ready to be reviewed, and submit. And it says that the item has been submitted successfully and gives you timestamp. Now we go back to the process page.
Amy, would you like me to check that so they can see what it looks like once it changes?
I'm sorry?
Would you like me to check that behind the scenes so that they can see how it changes from submitted to?
Yeah. So the work gets submitted to Tina, and so right now, while we're talking, she's going to go review that. But you'll see when you submit work, we have your due date, and then we give you a status. So this item has been submitted. And Tina, just let me know when you have that reviewed. I can go ahead and talk about
Sure,
the
that's
next.
fine.
Pardon?
Go. Yeah, that's fine. I'll be there.
Okay. Your next step is the SIP uses, and this lets us customize your plan for you. So the thing that really everybody should check, if it's not already checked, is the Indiana rules and regulations, because all Indiana schools have to abide by the Indiana rules and regulations. You can also let us know if you're a comprehensive support and improvement school or a targeted support and improvement school. We have additional uses for the Title I schools. If you're targeted assistance, school-wide, or focus targeted, just check those as they apply. And then we have AMO on here because apparently that's still something that needs to be known. And so you just fill those things out. Tina, did you want to say anything about AMO?
It's extremely practically impossible to find on the Compass page that is your most up-to-date information. And so most schools are just going with from your latest ISTEP scores, what you have seen, which would be your kids that perhaps would require a bit more help. It's just a given that most schools will check their bottom 25%, and then you can look into your demographics and your breakdown. Another suggestion is that since the TSI list came out, or the ATSI, if you have a specific group, for example, special ed, that puts you in ATSI, just go ahead and check that, and then you'll have that covered.
Thank you. And then down at the bottom, we'd like to know how many teachers are in the building and how many students are in the building. Let's just fill those in, and you click Save, and we're saved. Go back to the process, and we'll submit that for review. Now, when you come back to this page, the process page, you're going to see that the steering team discussion summary has met criteria. So Tina has reviewed that, and I can click on it and find it on this month's list. So here's my steering team discussion summary. It's met criteria. I have check marks, and Tina has commented, nicely done. So that's our first submission. SIP uses, that's showing up as submitted, and it'll stay submitted until Tina reviews it.
Just a quick reminder to the schools, many times if something meets criteria and it might just be lacking the tiniest little thing that doesn't really affect the criteria, or something that has occurred to me as I'm reading it that might be helpful down the road, or you've done something just really, really neat and expertly in something, you will see a meets criteria, see comments. So anytime that you see meets criteria, see comments, don't feel that it's a B plus. It's not necessarily. It may be an A plus plus. But I would like you, if you see comments, to go ahead and click on that and see what my comments are concerning that.
She is an expert in this process, and if she notices something that could trip you up down the road, she'll let you know, because we want to get those stumbling blocks out of your way before you ever see them. So yeah, those things, it's going to be something that's useful for you. So be sure to read those comments. If anything ever needs revision, your status will be needs revision, and then Tina gives you a note to let you know what you need to do for your item to meet criteria. And most of the time, it's just something that got overlooked and just needs to be tweaked so that it'll meet criteria. Okay, so we're going to check off a couple more things. We're going to say we did our steering team discussion. We've entered our SIP uses. Save that. And then, so that brings us to step 6. So this month we're entering our steering team members. And this school has a few steering team members. So I'll look that over. If I needed to delete anyone, I just click a remove button. But to add a person, I click here. And we'll put in me. So I have all my information. We'll just skip to the chase here. We'll put in my position. Say that I'm the school counselor. And we ask for a home mailing address, and because there have been times when the teams have, someone has mailed reports to everyone, things that need to be printed out, or if it need to be done for signatures. So those can come in handy. Those are not required fields. We do want to make sure that every steering team member has an email address entered, though. The day phone, if for any reason we ever needed to contact you or you needed to contact each other, those phone numbers can be very useful. We will never call you unless there is some kind of emergency that would affect, let's say your school improvement plan, or yeah. So, and we email the monthly updates. We might email things that are important to the school improvement planning process, but we don't share your emails with other people, with any other organization. So don't, we don't want you to worry about where that data goes. It stays in-house, and we only contact you with things that are important to your school improvement planning process. So once you have all the information in, you're going to click Save. And now if I come down, we're in alphabetical order. So now I come down and I see myself here with my information. Okay. So we'll go back to the process page, and once we have all of our team members entered, we can check that off, or well, we'll check that off and save it. But then we also want to submit it for review. And we submit successfully. Go back to the process page. The next thing is just a little step. We need to identify our primary contact person. That's the person, if Tina needs to call or needs to get in touch with someone, that's the person that we'll call or email. Go back to the process page and check that out. I'm going to submit it for review. Well, now I can select me. There we go. And then we're going to enter the steering team point positions. So in Tools, I have a download link for you. And that's just going to open up that slide that have the descriptions and the information. So I can go ahead and download that and save it or print it off so it's handy. And we try to make sure, things in Tools are things that you need so you can accomplish that task. The entry page for this one is very simple. So we list each of the point positions and just let you select a person from your steering team roster. And that is one of the reasons why we say it's important to work in order. If you were trying to put in your primary contact or your steering team positions before you entered your steering team members, nobody would be listed. So that's just an example of working in order so that everything flows properly. Our process page. And that's done. And now the PGP log. So this is an optional thing. If you need PGP points, we can send those to the state of Indiana for you. You're just going to download the form. And go ahead and open that. There it goes. Okay, so this is a log that you'll keep all year for your PGP points. And you just need to fill out the top part, identify your initiative, and we have the address that you send that to. It's due June 15th. And then you're just putting in the date, what you did as far as your what you were working on in the process, and then how many hours you spent doing that. And just total those up at the end. So if you need to make additional copies of this or just add more rows, however you want to do that, you just want to keep a good log so that you can get, you can earn up to 90 professional growth points. So, and then at the end, we send that to the Department of Education. And, you know, as I said, that is optional, but it's something, you know, if you need those points, then this is one way to earn them. So then our last step, the rubric items, sometimes I think we probably should move this to the first step because this is kind of your cheat sheet for all the work that you're going to submit. This rubric items, you can look at this before you submit and you'll know exactly what Tina's looking for when she does her review. So on the SIP uses, she's looking to see, did the school update the services requested for the current year? Have you identified, well, we need to make a couple of changes there, sorry about that. Same thing with the steering team members, we're just making sure that it includes all the required members and that you've put in the name, email, and other information on that form, that you've got a primary contact identified, and that your steering team positions are filled out. So, you know, look those over and before you start work, and you'll know exactly what's required. But then you can also come, you know, and look at all your feedback for the month too, once everything has been reviewed. Tina, is there any more to say about that?
I don't believe so. I think you've covered everything. Just really take advantage of those rubric items. You know, that's, we're all grown-ups and professionals here, so we're not trying to play guess what I'm thinking. And you know, you've got a limited amount of time to get things done. So I always check those rubric items first to see exactly what needs to be done. It saves a tremendous amount of guesswork and everything else. So feel free to use those. And if they still don't make sense, we'll go to the next page and it'll say, give me a call.
Yeah. So again, the process page is really your guide through the rest of this year. We want you to work in order. We want you to just take it 1 month at a time, get those tasks done. When you have everything done for December, then you're ready in January to start with collecting data. So, you know, there are things throughout the year that are going to build on each other. And so just you know, work your way through. And if you have any questions, if anything is confusing to you or doesn't seem to work right, Tina is just a phone call away. And we're going to go to that next slide. Oh, well, first, does anybody have any questions about the online system or anything else that we've talked about? If, as you're working, questions come up, again, you'll call Tina, send her an email, and she'll help you through that. So if there aren't any questions now, we'll move on. I don't see any hands up, and I don't think we have any questions typed in.
No.
Yep. Okay. So we'll just move ahead. Yeah.
There's your panic page, or hopefully not your non-panic page. Just remember, if you need help, get in touch. That's why I'm here. Don't forget the 5-minute rule, and as the year goes on, I kind of turn it into a 5-second rule. So you should never ruminate over 5 minutes over any of this. Like I said, when we say, we want to help you through this process, we're very serious about that. So if you want to jot down my hours, it's Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, 8 until 2. And on Wednesdays, I flip it from 2 until 8. And that's all Eastern time. And you see the number there, 812-349-4142. And then E is man at asainstitute.org. And just like I said, feel free. There's no question too silly or anything else.
That has been the Getting Started webinar. So you've accomplished your first webinar. Go ahead and have that steering team discussion and get going.
We wish you well.
Thank you all so much, and happy holidays.
Thank you.